Hello and welcome to Chairside Live. I'm Megan Strong.
And I'm Will Schmidt, Registered Dental Assistant here at Glidewell Dental.
Will, it is a very exciting show today.
Tell me why you're excited.
Okay, well here's why I'm excited. The owner and founder of Dentaltown magazine and dentaltown.com, Dr. Howard Farran, he's sitting down with the man himself, Mr. Jim Glidewell, for an exclusive conversation that you won't hear anywhere else. There's two parts to it, so what do you say we start off part one?
I mean, the two most influential people in dentistry in the same room together?
Woo!
Let's get it started, why not?
Let's go.
It is just a huge honor for me today to be podcast interviewing the largest legend in all of dentistry, James R. Glidewell.
Thank
Jim
you so
Glidewell. It is just truly amazing. I got to tell you, I always thought of you as Herb Kelleher, who passed away last year.
In the Southwest, yeah.
Southwest Airlines. When I started lecturing airlines, it was for rich people. And the planes were empty and everybody was dressed nicely and it was a rich man's games. And Herb Kelleher said, I'm going to keep one eye on the customer and one eye on cost. And I'm going to use my brain to drive down cost until grandma has the freedom to afford to fly. And when I came out of school, not to throw anybody under a bus, but when I started taking continuing education, I started first at the Pankey Institute. And day one is this lecture, and love the guy, and I understand market segmentation, Mercedes-Benz, all that stuff, but he talked about how you just want to focus on A patients. And Erwin Becker gave this whole presentation about what an A patient was. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, I'm from Kansas. I don't have one cousin, nephew, sister, mom. None of us made the A list, the B list. We were all C, D, F list. And I kind of got this icky feeling that American dentistry was trying to make stuff for the rich people. And that's not what America was built on. I mean, Henry Ford said, if you made cars for the classes, you're going to be poor and live with the masses. He says, America is about making stuff to the masses. And you were just hell-bent on keeping your eye on cost so that the average working man could save his tooth. And so it was love at first sight for me and you.
Speaking of Henry Ford, he always says it's not what you can get for $1, but what you can give for $1. In other words, you want to give the most value for $1 always. And I've always believed in that. And then when I found out that only maybe 50% of the American public kind of really visit a dentist, I says, why is that? Well, it's cost prohibitive. And so how can we enlarge that marketplace? And so that's what I've always done. In fact, I think all of my employees will tell you that every day I come to work is how do I drive down the cost of what we do? And we've been able to drive down cost immeasurably because we've always been, I'm not going to say low cost, I always use the term, hey, we're kind of a Walmart. And my employees always fight me, they say, no, we're Costco, kind of a classy thing called Costco. And I said, maybe so, but the real thing is that we're going to keep dropping the prices on products as we get more and more efficient at producing them, because we're not really trying to put money in our pocket, we're trying to lower the cost of dentistry so all patients, more patients, can afford dentistry. That's really it in a nutshell.
It's funny you said Henry Ford, it's not what you can get for $1, it's what you can get for $1. The only other person I ever heard say that in my whole life was Ken Austin of ADEC, who passed away last year, and his wife Joanne. And he was a big Henry Ford deal. And what he liked about Henry Ford is that if you're driving a Model T and it broke down, you could go find a 20-year-old Model T in somebody's creek and ditch, and the same part would work.
Parts, interchangeable.
And he was so mostly motivated on those ADEC chairs that the whole chair, only once did he have to change the internal structure, and that was because as Americans got bigger and bigger and heavier, you lean back, it'd fall over. So he had to put a much bigger base. But he was like you, a detail for manufacturing, just totally manufacturing. But I want you to start with the original story, because you're born in Vegas.
Born in Las Vegas. About 4 years old, my father was having a hard time supporting my sister and I. So he sent me to Kentucky to live with my grandparents. And I lived on a subsistence farm in southern Kentucky. And I went to school, and
What's
I
a
went.
subsistence farm?
It's where you grow your own vegetables out back, and you have 2 pigs. Usually you slaughter 2 pigs, and you have a smokehouse, no indoor plumbing, and no water, no electricity. This is back in 1950 through 55. The TVA had not kicked electric power up into the southern part of Kentucky I was in until 1957.
After the Tennessee Valley
Yeah,
Authority?
Tennessee Valley Authority got the power up there about 1957. But we had no electricity. We just had kerosene lamps. And there was some kind of a little device we used to crank on. We could get a radio to work so we could hear Amos and Andy on the radio or something, you know. And it was really quite, you know, I think that when you're a kid, you think you're well off. Of course, we didn't have a car or anything like that. But I felt like we were fine. We had a little tobacco subsidy, which everybody in the South has. And so we had just a little bit of money. But anyway, by the time I was 10 years old, I returned to Las Vegas, where I was born, and continued on through regular school. And so it was kind of a simple upbringing. I was a terrible student in school. I mean, I wasn't the bottom of my class, but I was 328 out of 331 out of Las Vegas High School.
328 out of 331?
Yeah, and I always regret that I worked so hard. I should have worked not quite so hard. I could have been 331. But so at that point, right after high school, I just turned 18 at the same time, and I joined the Navy, and I went to Vietnam, basically, and came back in July 1965 with a whole new outlook on life. You know, the military in Vietnam had a chance to kind of shape you somewhat. And so I went, and I didn't have a lot of parentage. My parents were gone most all the time, and so I kind of raised myself. Because my father was a railroader, and he was gone 3 days at a time, and my mother was an accomplished gambler and whatnot in Las Vegas. I didn't see her very often either, my stepmother, but nice lady. So coming back from Vietnam, I went to work for Delta and Delta Airlines and ramp fueling airplanes, and then I went to become an insurance agent. The day I turned 21, I took the test, became an insurance agent, and then within about a month or something, I sold an insurance policy to a dental technician named Rex Frainer, who will always be in my heart, high school buddy. And he told me all about what he was doing, and I just thought it looked like an honest business, something you make with your hands and you get paid for it, you know. And I didn't really like contracts. I didn't want signing contracts, I wasn't going to make a living signing contracts, which was the insurance business. So I right away looked at, and I was able to go to Orange Coast College in California here, in Costa Mesa, on the GI Bill. So I got $175 a month to go to school. Got a job at Sears and Roebuck selling suits. Worked my way through school for about a year, and then I got a job in a dental lab for a few months. Then I went to work for a dentist named Bill Stanley in Orange. Well, we were in Santa Ana. And
Bill Stanley?
Bill Stanley was a dentist at USC.
Does he have a kid named Stanley, a young guy?
No.
There's a famous Kyle Stanley today.
Oh, yeah. And no, yeah, I know what you mean. No. He's not a golfer. You're thinking about Kyle Stanley, the golfer, aren't you? Yeah. Bill was a tough, run-up guy. He was from Tennessee. He had the same background I did, and when I met him, I just loved the guy. And I worked for him for about a year and a half, but he worked his way through dental school, USC, as a dental technician. So he really taught me the business, even when I went to a school. I was.
So you went to the school?
I went to the school,
is it still
but
there?
they call the school. No, it's not. It closed 10 years later, maybe. Yeah. There wasn't any jobs for technicians. You know, you go to school and you get out and you still couldn't find a job. So finally they realized it wasn't working. So then Bill taught me everything I know, and then one day he came to me and he said, "By the way, we've got to get out of here because I haven't been able to pay the rent." And I said, "Well, how much time have we got?" He said, "Oh, 10, 15 minutes." So that brings us where we are today. It's 50 years of being in business, because Bill said, "We got to go." I said, "Where are we going to go?" And Bill says, "There's no we in this. I'm going to LA to get a job, and I don't know where you're going." So I was kind of thrown out on the street. He's a dear friend of mine, by the way. We are absolutely close friends.
So let's go back to that decision. The dental schools, they all added hygiene departments and closed down their Crown and Bridge deals. And so I knew labs. So I was born and raised in Kansas, went to Creighton in Nebraska, and these little Crown and Bridge labs say, well, I've had an ad in the local newspaper for 6 months for a porcelain stacker.
Right, yeah.
But they quit training them. What do you think of that decision? Why did dental schools add hygienist and take away labs? Because when I lectured in Hong Kong, not very long ago, they had a dental school and a Crown and Bridge deal, and the dental laboratory class was, I think, 400, and the dentist class was 100, and they didn't even have hygienist. So why is China?
I think when a dentist opens an office in the United States, he's going to need an assistant, and he can have a hygienist on staff, but he doesn't necessarily have a dental technician. They always use some outside lab. So that's kind of outside their immediate focus when they're trying to run their own little business and everything. So I think we were able to train people to be technicians. It wasn't a very organized training method. When I went to school, I was taught dental technology, ceramics, by a denture technician, because the school that hired a denture technician, setup guy to teach these classes. They didn't know. They said, "You're a dental technician?" "Sure." Well, teach this class on, and the guy, I don't know, how do you make a crown? I don't know, but I can set up a denture. But anyway, so I realized early on I was going to have to teach myself. Then I met the dentist, Bill Stanley, and boy, he knew what he was doing. He told me about contacts and occlusion and how to trim margins and do it right, and so I was pretty good at it. And I also taught myself ceramics, because in 1968, 69, there were no real ceramists in Orange County. Maybe it was 4 or 5. They came several hundred, but there was only 4 or 5 at that time. So I went to a class one time where they were selling instruments. I just watched this guy pack porcelain, and I thought, I can do that. I went home and made every mistake there was, but I eventually became good at it.
I love the clarity in what you said, is you wanted to have an honest work and an honest living, and an honest work is working with your hands.
Yes.
If you're a welder, you're a dentist, you're a surgeon.
Absolutely.
And so much of society has gone to just sitting at a computer, contracts, writing, and it scares me that we live in a country that no one wants to make anything. No one wants to work in their hands. They think they're all going to buy it from another country.
That's right.
And that they're going to work with their hands and make something, and we're just going to give them a piece of paper, and they're going to be good with that. And that looks very short-sighted.
Well, I've always, my Vietnam experience was interesting in that I came home uninjured except in my head, and I had lost 2 or 3 of my high school buddies over in Vietnam. Not in where I was at, but I got home and, hey, where's Jerry? Where's Joe? And I decided that they didn't have the opportunities going forward that I was going to have, and that I would work on their behalf. It's kind of hard to understand how my brain works. I get emotional about it. Sometimes it's hard to talk about, but they weren't here anymore, and yet I was. So why not work as hard as I possibly can? And even today, as I sit here, I'm 74 years old. 50 years, started my company 24, 50 years now, and I'm 74. I could have quit many years ago. It certainly has nothing to do with money. But I remember my commitment to the people in Vietnam that didn't come home, the commitment to employees. When the first girl walked into my office who was an employee, I had my little dental lab and I needed somebody from my class to come and help me. She walked in and I realized that I was responsible for her career, that she would look to me as the boss, and she was going to have a career at my little dental lab. And I thought, my gosh, that's a heavy burden. It's a heavy burden to say, I'm not responsible for her needs. And as you can see today, here we sit here today and I have 5,000 people with needs. And that's why I can't even retire now. I worry every day I'm going to screw up. That I'm coming to work, I've got to keep building this for them, for these cameramen and everybody that works in our company. I have to keep going. And I worry, Herb Kelleher and Mr. Austin, I worry, I know what happened to them. They ran out of time. And I am at, my age too. I worry that I don't have enough time to accomplish all the things I think need to be done for dentistry.
Is your Vietnam experience also why there's a lot of Vietnamese people working in Glidewell Laboratory?
Yeah, I would think so, to a degree. We live, by the way, in an area around here where there's many ethnicities, and we have at this company 68 different ethnic backgrounds. When this afternoon I'll show you on the wall, we have a wall of flags that are at a building, and we have 68 flags on that wall. But I felt over here that they were not respected enough, and that I thought I would take care of that community, and I've done a pretty good job. Because I think we have, several hundred Vietnamese working in the company.
That is amazing. So when I got out of school, it's kind of weird because the fillings were silver fillings, and they were half mercury. The other half was silver, zinc, copper, and tin, all antibacterial stuff, and they lasted forever, and they were cheap. And the gold, something about the gold, bacteria just don't like to live under that, high energy
An
gold.
open margin seems to last forever.
I have patients in Phoenix that have gold foils where you can see loops through them on 80-year-old women, and you can see, and there's no decay.
No decay, yeah.
And then this, the cosmetic revolution came along and said, those 38-year long-lasting, low-cost silver fillings, I want that to be replaced with cheap, white, inert plastic. And that crown, I want it to, it just looks is the only thing that matters. We've always called the aesthetic health compromise. And you would say to them, do you want a silver filling that'll last 38 years for 100? Or do you want a white plastic tooth-colored one for 200 that'll last 7 years? And they say, I'll take the white.
Always, yeah.
It's like, so what are, do you think that someday something will happen to that crown that will be like a gold crown to where it will, things won't want to live underneath it. We talk about bridge like we're a mechanical engineer, but we're really biologists. Mm-hmm. You build a barn and you tell them every day I want you to wash and wax the barn and you take care of the barn. But at the end of the day, termites are going to eat the whole barn.
Right, yeah.
Gold and amalgam, termites.
They've proven their place.
They stop biology invasion. Do you think the tooth-colored crown will ever do that?
Maybe not to that degree, but we're only into zirconia about 10 years, we're 12 years into zirconia now. And so far we've seen, incredible strength. They just don't break. But as far as the biology going on there, I really don't know. I can't say. Haven't seen any negatives at all. But I can't say I've seen any negatives whatsoever. But the one thing that, as a dental laboratory, we came up with zirconia because all we saw the vendors handing us was more and more expensive white filling materials. When lava came out from 3M, it was a very nice product and everything, but just a coping of materials in the coping were $60 for us. And we used to put $1 worth of Ceramco porcelain on a crown. Now all of a sudden we got a $60 coping. And they were selling like crazy, and people are buying into the concept that you need this product and all that. But we laboratories, all of a sudden, our lab fees started going up and up and up as vendors wanted to get more and more into that lab fee. And so I decided, and if you'll look around today when I show you this through this place, we make almost all of our own materials. We make our own lithium silicate materials. We make our own zirconia here. We make our own composite materials here. We don't do powdered metal. We used to, but we don't make powdered metal for selective laser centering of copings, whatnot. But we do basically build almost everything here. We build our own milling machines. I'll show you milling machines.
So why do so many companies? It's like they know they are going to make something more expensive for less people. Mm-hmm. And then when you look at the winners, who's the number one airline? Southwest, Walmart, Costco, number one furniture, IKEA. Why is it so obvious that the person who keeps one eye on the customer and one eye on cost and uses their brain to drive down costs so their customer can afford the freedom to buy your product, why are guys like you, why is that, why does everyone not understand that?
We're a vertically integrated company, and we know that if we can save money on materials, we can lower the invoice. Therefore, we get more market share. And that's really what's happened at Walmart, Costco, and these different companies, these big box places. The new guys coming into the dentistry, and I could say even like, Smile Club Direct, Bite, there's several of them out there that are, in the invisible brace business today. Most of them are venture capital based. You know, they're backed by VC guys, and they've got an exit strategy, and it says, you know, we're going to hit our gold mine here in 2 years or 3 years. We've got a way out. I don't see a way out. What I do is I don't see any way out of what we're doing. We have to continue growing, making it better all the time, making it less expensive all the time. And as people will tell you about me, you know, when they ask me what my exit strategy is, I say it's death.
It's a pine box.
It's a pine box. That's how I get out. I got no venture capital guys saying, hey, come on, let's speed it up here. I need to get out of this thing. No, we don't have that. And we have a continuity program going on here at the company where people will back me when I'm gone. But I'm a strategic planner more than anything else anymore. Actually, you won't believe this, but I haven't made a crown in a few years.
And I just got a text. I have to see patients when I get back home.
But by being vertically integrated, our costs are extremely low. I mean, I buy materials probably 30% of what it costs at Dental Lab to buy
vertically
materials.
integrated. A lot of my listeners.
Well, vertically integrated
means
means like you're sitting here in a studio today with all my really expensive camera gear, and it all belongs to Glidewell Laboratories. So we are shooting our own videos. We don't go out and pay somebody, you know, $1,500 an hour to come in and do video for us. We're here all the time. And the reason I do that is because I know if you have a tool, you'll use it more often than if you rent it. If you start to rent things and everybody says, oh, you just rent that stuff, you don't need it. It's like our real estate. We own most all of our, do you know that we have almost 1 million square foot of real estate we either own, it is 1 million, we either own probably 80% of it or we rent the rest. And the reason I wanted to own the real estate is because if I need to change walls in our business, we all got plumbing everywhere, electrical, and you go into a standard business office and you ask the landlord, can we drill a hole here and put a pipe in here? As you know, in dentistry, we're putting pipes everywhere, and air compressors.
To put that in perspective, the Pentagon is 1 million square feet.
Yeah,
So I didn't know that.
I didn't know that. Yeah, you know, this building here is 75,000 feet. And then you go over here to our other campus, and there's 100,000, 100,000, 251,000, 100,000. We'll show you 20-some acres over there, right across from the airport here that we own. That's a lot of our stuff. Now, we also have offices in South America and whatnot. We're buying a building in Mexico City right now, too, because we really want to control our destiny. We had an office in Las Vegas that my son-in-law and my daughter run up there in Las Vegas, and we were asking permission to throw a pipe in the floor, you know, for a drain, and it's not going to happen. And yet we really needed it, so I went and bought another building.
Or government?
No, the landlords just don't want you to cut the floor or make any changes to the building, and they have the right to do that. Huh. All of a sudden, I need that though for a
Now you used to have a place in Costa Rica. You used to take your boat down there. From here to there, you'd sail.
Yeah, but I've never been to my office in Costa Rica.
You never been there?
No. I've never been to my office in Tijuana or Mexico City or Colombia or Chile. I've been to the office in Las Vegas because my daughter's there sometimes. But no, I don't visit my offices because I tell them what I think how a business should be run. But if I show up all the time, they expect me to make the decisions. Oh, well, Jim's coming, he'll make that decision. So if I just stay away, they make their own decisions.
One question about your customer, the dentist, private equity. A lot of the kids that are listening right now, a quarter of them are in dental school and they're all under 30. Send me an email, howard@dentaltown.com, and tell me where you're from, what country. But a lot of them say, they look at two old guys like us, they say, Howard and Jim, when you guys were little, all the pharmacists owned their own business. Now they're all work at CVS and Walmart. They see Heartland, they see Pacific, they see Bob Fontana with Aspen, all of them now coming up on 1,000 offices, and they say, hey, when they're our age, is private independent dentists gone? Are we all going to be working at McDentals?
I have a feeling that McDental is what's coming. Also, when they get out of school, you know, it takes a while to get your maturity together, you know, and become a real journeyman at this business. And I think Aspen, Pacific, Heartland, they all perform a pretty good service. You know, I think that they're a good training ground, you know. Clear Choice, all of them. You know,
So you think that will, so how,
Yeah, it's
what
changed,
percent is
hasn't
it?
it? I mean-
what percent is it now, and what do you think it'll be at 10, 20, 30 years? Or this is your 50th
I'm gonna
anniversary.
say-
What will it be 50 years
Yeah,
from now?
50 years from now, it's going to be. I'm going to think it's going to be 25% independent practices in small rural areas, and all the cityfied areas are going to be McDental offices. That's a
In
personal
50
thing.
years?
Yeah.
75,
Yeah,
25?
I think you're going to have some outlying areas out there where there's, the population density is going to be less than 1,000 in, say, 25-mile radius, and you're going to have one or two little offices in that area. But
And why do you what is your intuition that makes you think that? That's
well,
the way
it's
it'll go?
from we work for a lot of small town dentists today, so we're looking at. I wonder why these guys send us work. Well, they don't have a dental lab around because there's only 2 of them in 100 miles.
So I want to go to Chairside Milling. It came out. It was the CAD cam, and of course, it was a $140,000 machine. I mean, Patterson's always done this. I remember when I got out of school, I bought the first intro camera as a Fuji cam. It was $38,000. It wasn't even 3 or 4 years, and other people were selling it for $10,000.
Yeah.
So they came out with their CAD cam. It was their CAD cam. It was $145,000, and I'd be lecturing in other countries and where you could see them in Germany and Asia for half that price. But at the end of the day, it didn't really seem to take off. I mean, the numbers I see, only about 12% of dentists are using the Sirona CAD cam to chairside milling. So if 12% are using it, means 88% aren't.
No, not, yeah.
And when other things came out, like when radiology came out, everybody got an X-ray machine. Some technologies, really spread fast. So what was your thoughts on CAD cam, Sirona CAD cam, and why did it?
Yeah, when
Not really take
back
off.
in the late 70s, I had the opportunity to run into Francois Duray from France, and he came over here to USC, and gosh darn, I can't remember the gentleman's name out here, the dentist they tied up with, but they're going around doing seminars on how to use CAD cam to machine gold crowns. And it was falling on deaf ears a lot because it was way, way before its time. But I still, to this day, I think of Francois Duray as being the father of CAD-CAM dentistry. And he has a system out right now, I understand, but I don't really know the name of it, truthfully. I've forgotten right now because there's about 8 or 10 out there competing with cameras and whatnot. And the lawsuits are flying back and forth, But so I've always been interested in it. And I truthfully, when it first came out, I said, no way, this can't be done. So I also said the same thing with the fax machine, by the way. A guy came in one time trying to sell me a fax machine. I said, that is a really ridiculous idea. Within about 4 years, it was all over the United States. And but I wouldn't change my mind. I'm seldom right, but never in doubt. So, but I think when I first saw it come out, I thought, well, something will come of it. And then it picked up, Sirona did a pretty good job of bringing it out. And for those that were liked the idea, it was great. The problem that I saw with it, and I've still seen with it, is that there's a lot of tissue in the mouth that hangs over margins, and the intraoral scanners can only see what it can see. And so then to use the tool, sometimes you have to use an electrosurge to open up the field so that you can actually see the margins. And I thought, wow, you got to do surgery to use a tool. And I thought, that's kind of a crazy thing. So I really think as much as I like CAD-CAM, and obviously I'm in it, Glidewell IO system, but there's a big market out there still for polyvinyl siloxane. It'll be around a long time. I'm positive of it.
Well, I'm so you remember Jim Miles, the CEO of Dentsply?
Sure.
Love that guy. He had
Yeah,
the biggest
yeah.
boat on Chesapeake Bay.
Yeah,
Did you know that?
yeah.
His
He was a
wife was
boater.
from Puerto Rico, so he
Yeah.
bought a boat that could literally go from Chesapeake Bay to Puerto
All the
Rico
way to Puerto
see his
Rico,
mother-in-law.
yeah.
And he said, I asked him one day at dinner, I said, what's the greatest thing about dentistry? And he goes, dentists are so brand loyal. He said, he said, they got so many things going wrong that if something works, they're not changing that.
Never change it.
And I think about that. I started out on Impergum when it was made in Germany. And now it's bought by 3. I'm still 32 years later. I'm still using Impergum. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, the brand loyalty. I think a dentist running a practice has so many decision points There's so many things that he has to stay loyal to that, and he's moving on to something else. I mean, you don't get bored in dentistry. You get overwhelmed, I think. Yeah. And so I think that's why people, then there's the innovative guys that want to try the thing like, the 12% that are using Sirona. I just, as you do, I mean, I thought it was extremely expensive. I like the idea. I was building machines to do zirconia milling, and I said, well, I can build a machine that's 6 foot tall to do zirconia. Why can't I make a small machine that'll do that, do something else? And everybody thought I was having these made in China or something, but I'll show you today. I make everything right here in Irvine, California. And we have, I have like 15 PhDs on staff, another 25 industrial engineers that design, mechanical engineers that design all these things, minimally 100 software writers that write all the software. We have over 50.
And you've been hiring software writers in Python, which is artificial intelligence language.
Yeah.
And I did a podcast interview with a guy in artificial intelligence who was just mesmerized by what you're doing with artificial intelligence. He was saying that people like me send in an Improgum and that you scan it and AI determines. So what are your...
One of the scanning things, when you use polyvinyl siloxane, it'll get down in every little groove. It's just nasty stuff. It just crawls in the sulcus, and it copies everything. But when you're using a visible light scanner, it can't look into undercuts. So what we've done is we've come up with computer tomography, and we're able to see right through an impression, as long as there's not a metal tray in there. We could take a box with an impression in it, scan the entire box without ever opening it, and absolutely give you a detailed copy of the prep all the way down within 20 microns. Now, this is unheard of. 4 or 5 years ago, CT was about 200 microns. Now we've got it down to 20. We're now building our own CT units. Show you one today. We're building our own CT scanners, and we can put an impression in there. We have one system downstairs now that we're on this floor. Where are we at? That we're scanning 200 and up to 230 impressions a day right now on this robotic line that we've built.
230 impressions a day?
Yeah, a day. Yeah, it's a task we're doing for an outside company, but I'll show you what it looks like, what it's doing right now.
Because how many impressions do you actually receive?
As you know, we get 90,000 a week.
90,000 impressions a week.
Yeah.
Wow. So that.
And of course, I look at all of them.
Yeah. So on those impressions, some people out there are saying that that if you send in a scan, there's less remakes. Other people are saying if you send in the impression, it's the same. Are there more or less remakes?
I'll tell you, when you send in a scan, an intraoral scan, there are definitely less remakes. We've come to that conclusion, and we do a lot of data analytics here. If you're an average dental lab, and some areas we do the same because we're not completely into CT scanning yet, we have to pour that model. Then we take the model and we die trim it. And every time engineers will talk about error stack up. A stack up error is when you go from one material, then you have to go to another one, then you got to scan it again, and then you go to a casting, and you make even the 3D printers involved. Each one of these, let's say you start off at 20 micron. By the time you get down to the fifth element of this process, it's 100 microns.
And that's called stack?
It's called stack up error.
Stack up error.
Yeah. In other words, how tight does a screw fit, and if you make 1,000 screws but you never change the burr that cuts them, they get looser and looser and looser. Okay, so if you add up all these 20 micron errors, after 5 or 6, there's a 100 micron error. And we know that we need to have 75 micron margins to put them in the mouth, supposedly. And yet we know there's a lot of 200 micron. Thank God for the cements we're using today, that'll plug any gap in there. But stack up error is the thing you're fighting. So if you give me a polyvinyl siloxane and I use a CT scanner on it, I go right through that impression, and I go directly into a CAD program, design it, CAM program to machine it, and I will give you a product that'll probably be within 20 to 30 microns. I've got a chance because I didn't go through the plaster. Your plaster is good on one day, maybe day two, the batch of plaster you got is a little different. So the expansion in 24 hours is a little different. Most dental labs don't wait 24 hours to work on a model work. They start working on it within 6 or 8 hours. And in reality, that stuff's supposed to set for 24 hours. So, you know.
So is there any scanners, like anything, there's a lot, 3M has TrueDef. You have Copenhagen, Denmark has 3Shape. You have all kinds of scanners. You have your own IO scanner.
I've worked with the 3Shape guys in the past. They've got their Trios scanner, very, very nice, very, very good scanner, got good color. They've grown from a couple of graduates out of a college over there into 1,500 employees now. Dental labs around the world use their work. The TrueDef scanner, very nice little scanner, was backed by 3M, and I understand they've sold it off right now. And I haven't
they
followed
did
much
sell
on
it off?
Yeah, I believe 3M has sold that scanner now.
Who do you know who
And
bought
I
it?
don't know who bought that.
Was it you?
No, it wasn't. Wouldn't have been a bad idea. We built our own scanner in San Diego 7, 8 years ago, and I had my head handed to me. It's a difficult business to be in. But because of that scanner that we then bought the software company in Russia that does all of our CAD/CAM software out of Moscow.
So you bought a Russian scanner?
Yeah, well, no, I bought the company, the software developers that write software for basically just dentistry. Their background, they'd worked for another company, an orthodontic company that does clear aligners.
Invisalign?
I think so. And they had moved, Invisalign moved over to the Ukraine, and the Moscow guys were ripe to do what we were doing. And
Where would you say Russia's Silicon Valley is?
It's Moscow.
Is it Moscow?
I would think it was Moscow, yeah.
You think it's Moscow?
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people forget that Russians landed a droid on the moon first. They had the first Sputnik. They had the first dog in space, woman in space.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yuri
it's an
Gagarin.
extremely high-tech country.
Yeah.
They're not low-tech at all.
Not at all. It's kind of like funny. I always think about Minnesota and Michigan and those northern states, how much precision engineering they do up there, even in the United States. You know, well, they're inside all year. It's cold and snowing.
Yeah, so I want to go back. I want to switch to Invisalign for a second because it's confusing. I fell in love with you when I was in dental school, and I did because you seemed like the only guy that was a champion. I mean, I grew up with 5 sisters and a brother in Wichita, Kansas. My dad delivered rainbow bread. Yeah. So we were so poor. I didn't know that that people, you know, I thought only air conditioners were at the store. I was 10 years old before I realized that some people were so rich they had an air conditioner in their house. Yeah. And so here's the orthodontist. They all get $6,500. Invisalign comes out with clear aligners, a great technology, but they work with the orthodontist. The price is still $6,500. And then someone comes out, Smiles Direct Club, and says, you know what, we're going to go for $2,500. And we're going to do that. We're going to bypass the orthodontist. We're going to scan it. We're going to have AI read the impression, and just give a $4,000 break to the little guy. And the orthodontist said, absolutely not. And they're trying to. So it's a war. But what do you think of that? Is Smiles Direct trying to help the poor guy, or is this union busting with the rich orthodontist? How do you view this?
I think, you know, you had venture capital backed concept. They went public. Their IPO was only 6, 8 weeks, 2 months ago maybe. It fell precipitously, and I had told people, this is a good little company, actually. I kind of like their concept. But, you know, in like the state of California, your CDA is fighting them tooth and nail to keep them out. They're not fighting them that way. They're saying, well, if you want to go to Smile Direct Club, you need to go have an x-ray done by a real dentist first. So they're putting a dentist in the way, so that's going to block it.
I'm sure they didn't say real dentist. I'm sure they said real orthodontist.
A real orthodontist.
A real orthodontist.
You're right, and I understand. I mean, the orthodontist, that's how they make a living. And so they're seeing Smile Direct Club is going around them. And from a business standpoint, I think they've got a great business idea. I've even advised some friends of mine, they buy the stock because it's probably going to go. Darn thing went down almost 60%. But even yesterday, it was up 15%.
Right.
You know, so it's coming back. They signed a contract with Walmart They've expanded into 4 countries in the Far East already. Just announced that on Monday. So I think they're here to stay. But there's also 4 or 5 more right behind them, chomping at the bit, you know.
Well,
I think Smile Direct Club's issue is setting up an office where you do an intraoral scan, and that's where the dental boards are getting upset about that. They're saying, no, you should be going to an orthodontist office and getting an intraoral scan. Well, then why are you going to use Smile Club Direct? Whereas there's 2 or 3 others behind Smile Club Direct, other companies like Bite and whatnot. They're saying you don't have to do that. We're going to send you a home impression kit. So it's direct to consumer, and it's catching on a lot bigger than I thought it would. So
One of the
it's
reasons,
dropping the price. Is it good for dentistry? You know, it's not good for dentists. It's probably good for patients.
Wow, thank you so much for that, Mr. Glidewell and Dr. Farran.
Yeah, it was a great conversation, and we can't wait for the last remaining part of it coming up very soon, so stay tuned. But before I go, I want to invite you to earn some free CE credit.
Wow.
Yeah, you can head to glidewelldental.com, and there's tons of courses. Which course do you recommend?
I'm thinking today, how about Millennium Dentistry, Engagement and Retention by Dr. Chad Duplantis.
You better get on over there and check it out. But for today, we're all wrapped up, so on behalf of everyone here at Glidewell Dental, thank you so much for watching.
We'll meet you right back here next time.